I'll be honest with you. I'm not the most technologically advanced person out there. All right, there we go. But y'all know I don't watch TV. I don't watch any kind of American entertainment for the most part. Any of it. But I watch YouTube. And I watch documentaries on YouTube and old Star Trek stuff, The Next Generation. I haven't watched the new shows on that. Okay, don't ask me about that. I haven't watched that yet. Watched a lot of the Outer Limits. I grew up watching that show and the original Stargate. Stargate Atlantis was, I caught some of that, but that I was growing. I was kind of like becoming a teenager then. That's when I started going out and, kind of wanting to go do stuff, That was a good show too, though. One thing about the Outer Limits, that shit was ahead of its time. It's like Heat of Night, a few other shows. That really was an era show because it was kind of, it's like Gattaca. It was kind of talking about stuff that was sci-fi but that could possibly happen. That was my show. I've bought the DVD set of Tales from the Dark Side. I've watched Night Gallery. Everybody watched Twilight Zone. I used to watch the new Twilight Zone with Forrest Whitaker back in the day. It was like Friday nights. I loved that shit. Yeah, I watched all that stuff, man. And Outer Limits was my shit. No question. Hands down, And I remember watching, I bought a bunch of DVDs once I got older. They never really organized it like season 1. Same thing with Heat of Night. They didn't organize like season 1, 2, 3, 4. They had like sex and sci-fi and stuff like that. But you can watch it on YouTube. I think somebody told me it's on Hulu. I don't know. My favorite episode of all time is Theory of Relativity. Before I go any further, the guy that started the show, or the guy that made the new episodes, he said that the difference between Twilight Zone and Outer Limits is that Twilight Zone was fantasy. Like we're not all toys in a toy box and a little girl's playing with us. Okay. Outer Limits, all that shit could possibly happen. We could one day be on a ship that is self-actualized and can fly itself and think for itself, it's possible you could have a world one day with robots or running a concentration camp. This one episode I'm watching now, I forgot what the hell this one's about. These people were flying to like another planet, taken captive, but they didn't know the whole thing was like Siri. Survival. It's a school they send you to where you're trying to escape POW school, basically. Teach you how to resist, torture, how to hide in the woods, stuff like pilots was the force we'll have to go to the schools, Ranger. That's what this episode was about. But the episode is like them being tortured. But it's all like futuristic stuff. Like they shot one dude and his mouth closed up, he couldn't talk, and it was basically trying to make them go against each other, but it backfired. They ended up killing each other, fighting each other. Then there was the episode I loved the most. I didn't catch this one until I got the DVD set. In the future, we have aliens. We meet aliens, but they're stupid. We make them our slaves. And so there's one white man. He's like the governor or something. He's out there and he goes, he gets hurt by other aliens. The slave they have, he gives them his mucus. And it saves the guy, but it makes him kind of mutate. And so when the soldiers get a hold of the dude, it's one thing about the show I thought was interesting. I guess the futuristic thing, they had to kind of like twist things up. Kind of like androgynous men and stuff like that. They had to always try to be cutting edge. So their idea of cutting edge was to make the black characters all be like coons. What I mean by that, hear me out, because it's an incredible concept they have. It really is. Because the concept of that one day you will have black generals, okay? One day you will have black presidents. one day you will have like black people high up in the military and stuff, but they're going to be more racist than the whites. They're going to be more brutal, more vicious, more everything than the whites. And that's why they'll be tolerated. They're not going to get in there and be like, all right, I'm going to change this shit for blacks. No, they're going to be super coons. And just watching this, I'm 28 years old. I'm 29 years old. So I'm not a 16-year-old kid sitting in front of TV at grandpa's house on Saturday night. I'm a lot different now than I was when I was a kid. So watching it, it's interesting to see that this show came out in the 90s, I think. Yeah, it's like early 2000s. So it was already kind of off the air when I was watching. It was pretty like, it was like reruns. Yeah, I wasn't like watching it when it's coming out, obviously. And it's just still interesting to see that world is coming. Yeah, like, that they would do things, but it wouldn't necessarily help black people. They would, you know what I mean? And also, the concept that we would go into space, but we would militarize everything. So when, like there's one episode I watched a minute ago where the aliens were coming down and the Americans didn't know if they were warlike or not. And the aliens were trying to communicate by shooting lasers at the satellites, but it was blowing the satellites up. And so at the end, the Americans shot at the aliens, but these guys, people were like gods. You couldn't fight them, and it was the end of the world. They were like, you couldn't stand up to the aliens. This one here, this guy, he's a black guy. He's like a general. It's like a captain or a major or something. He's like real gung-ho and everything. That was the future. You'd have blacks get into stuff, but they're going to be more aggressive than everybody. They're going to be, and you'd have more women and stuff too. I find it interesting that this is one of those shows that, yeah, the graphics are shitty, but one of these shows that has not really, like I tell my friend Denzel, the best shows you can watch 20 years later with your kids. Relativity theory, and I'm kind of probably end it here. A theory of relativity. In the future, you have post-industrialism. Run out of resources. So what they do is they send. I think that they even like tore up the Amazon. That was way in the future, and so they send people off into inner space. It's mercenary, all mercenaries, and which is amazing because you didn't even really hear about mercenaries back then. And now with Iraq and Afghanistan, you see a lot of that. That was really the break, the blow up. And that was way before the episode came out. Way before. No, that was like the beginning. Because 9/11, it was maybe the beginning of it. But it wasn't like stuff like that. It was like mercenaries were like Kellogg, Brown, and Root. It was like small stuff. The people that were doing little jobs. You didn't have these like giant, like this thing what Trump was doing with Eric Prince, talking about took the troops out, putting the mercenary, which is basically how they're going to engage in war crimes. You didn't have nobody talking about this. So that's amazing that they were ahead of the times. You know what I mean? They were really ahead of the times, knowing that in the future they would use mercenaries to do a lot of dirty shit you can't get treated for, or you don't want to get treated for. So they sent them to this planet off world, and they started committing war crimes against aliens. But the aliens were really like the children. The parents were somewhere else. And they had this big gold emblem or something. And really it was like a beacon that something happened to the kids. Like you might put like a tracker with your kids when they drive or something. I think they have apps where you can track your kids or something like that. And the mercenaries like shit would kill all the kids and steal the beacon. And they didn't know they were leading the aliens back to Earth. But I just thought it was interesting that whole idea of fuck them, we'll kill all the aliens. That is what we see today with Trump, with Iraq, and when he went over there and told them to give us oil. It's the same concept that 10 years ago they were talking about the outer limits. And that's because that's the mindset of the oppressor. It doesn't matter if it's in 2001 or if it's in 2021. It's irrelevant. It's the concept of the oppressor believing that everything is his anyway. All natural resources are his anyway. And that as we go further in the future and they become more desperate, they'll also get more violent. You see, all those years where we thought there wasn't racism, it was because they didn't have to be that way. I realize now that that it's kind of like dogs barking and cats meowing and, like I said, rocks being hard, water wet. That's the spirit of the oppressor. It is to oppress. It is to be imperialistic. Whether you have trannies in there or not, or blacks in there or not, it's the spirit of imperialism. Period. And the folks that I read and listen to on the radio, on SoundCloud, talking about they want to get out and stuff, that's because they were never really, they didn't have that spirit in them. You have folks that like that shit. They like war. And I realize now that that's not only wrong, that's a problem that you know, like the guy was talking about. Why do you want to go over there and kill people who are defending their country? You have no right to do that. You can't be angry at them. You know. So that's why you have that I am an infidel, being proud of being a racist, being proud of being this dirty, nasty human being. Anyway, I just think that's interesting that Al Leonard was ahead of his time. You know, I want to say, people talk about they miss it and stuff. Like I said, I missed it. I was on YouTube commenting on it. Will there be another one? I don't know. It's like the new Star Trek. I'm not going to watch it. It's like a guy said that the American system, Americans have lost the plot. I don't watch sports. I don't watch sports. I don't watch a lot of Western news. I watch Rachel Maddow once in a while. I catch MSNBC clips on YouTube. I think the American system is sick. And it bothers me that so much what we talked about years ago, plastic in the water and things like that, they've come true. The world's gotten worse. And it's amazing that people that years ago called me crazy, now it's accepted. Them using propaganda on the American people, you know, it's just, it kind of bothers me that we just accept these things now. It's a new normal. They're saying Monsanto was running a fusion center. You know what that is? NSA was using that. They had something similar. They still have something similar where they spy on people through the phones and stuff. You're talking about a corporation was spying on people who were protesting. And see, what that really shows you is when they talk about how GMOs aren't bad, I think we have to step back and say, if you believe that these things really aren't bad for the human population, why do you feel the need to take such measures as to spy on the American people? And I listened to that Socialist Rifle thing. They were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. I need to start watching it. I haven't been catching them because they're not on SoundCloud, they're on YouTube. I think they haven't made any episodes recently, but it's one of the worst case scenarios. They talk about that in the future you'd have more spying, you have more mercenaries. I didn't even know about this stuff then, but the fact that they're doing that's the future. Because I'm realizing all this stuff, the New World Order, what you call it, it's really corporate. It's really corporations. And it's really that, yeah, climate change is real. Man-made climate change is real. We're hurting people. We're killing people. We don't care. We're going to do what we can to keep making profits. And because I think that when you get to a point where you have a corporation that's putting big money into skewed scientific research and running fusion centers and trying to get journalists fired, I think we have to really, really question what are their intentions for the American people. I mean, it's like that thing I was watching, tell you about the aliens coming down, and the general's like, the president's like, well, we can't shoot, we don't know what they're going to do. And the general's like, if they were peaceful, why are they blowing up satellites? Why are they doing all this shit? They can't be peaceful. That's how I feel about Monsanto. Why would you do all these things if you really felt like your cause was just and that they don't know the science? No, this is stuff you do. This is like COINTELPRO type stuff. Yeah. This is like COINTELPRO. This is different. Devious, diabolical shit. Anyway, peace out.